I know this sounds borderline crazy, but I'm about to say something very evil right now. I made a grown man cry and absolutely loved it. There he was, on his knees, sobbing so hard that he could have drowned in his tears, desperate to hold me and be held by me. And suddenly, he said something so shockingly amusing that it made my cheeks tickle pink in satisfaction. But wait, before I tell you what he said, why am I even telling you the story? My name is Natalie Pratt, and I'm here to reveal a hush-hush psychological trick that'll make any man's heart beat, bang, and hammer with attraction for you. This trick is so terrifyingly unusual that when used on a guy, a new series of reactions will stir up in his head, and his body temperature will rise with raging temptation for you. I know this sounds freakish and beyond belief, so how can I be so sure it works? Well, in order to prove it, I'll have to go back to my story. It was around 2 a.m. in the morning when I was sitting on the edge of my bed with my boyfriend Kenneth sitting on the sofa in front of me. With a heavy sigh, he stood up and pushed his hands deep into his pockets. And then in a very disturbed tone, he said, "Natalie, there's something I need to tell you." A weird sense of tightness pulled at my forehead. As I replied, "Go on, I'm listening." "I think we're better off being friends. I don't think this is working out," he said. I strained to hold back my tears as I gave him a brutal stare. With trembling lips, I asked, "What do you mean?" "I don't see a future with you," he replied in this annoyingly frank tone. My blood pressure mounted, and I wanted to shout, rant, and scream, but I took a calm, deep breath and asked, "Is there someone else?" He turned his face away, and in a very cold tone, said, "Yes." My body almost exploded with pain, and this unleashed the hidden bitch inside me. I grabbed a shoe and threw it at him abnormally hard. I must have missed his head by a couple of inches. Before I could even think, he shot out of the door like a bullet out of a gun and ran away barefoot. I stood motionless as I tried to digest how the man I loved so much just assaulted my feelings and murdered them. But I wasn't going to let him off the hook this easy. With rage-filled eyes, I texted him and asked, "How could you do this to me?" I immediately received a response which read, "I don't think you're good enough for me. I deserve better, and I am way too good looking for you." My face burned with anger, and I wanted every cell, every nerve, and every muscle in his body to burn, suffer, and burst with pain. "He'll pay for this," I told myself. I vowed that I was going to smash and squish him emotionally and make him regret ever leaving me. With a psychopathic level of obsession, I searched for solutions and accidentally met this mysterious guy named James, who left me surprised and a little horrified. James had this underground group where he helped a handful of women attract extraordinarily handsome and abnormally rich millionaires who were so loaded that cash was literally falling out of their ears. But that wasn't even the big surprise. The biggest surprise was the kind of women he was helping, because none of these women were petite blondes with perfect blue eyes and velvety soft skin. Rather, they were your regular plain Janes with average jobs who were well into their 40s and 50s. Now, I'm not saying they were horrid-looking with horns growing out of their foreheads, but why would rich and handsome men date such ordinary women when they could easily have supermodels going wild, furious, and violent in attraction for them? But then I thought, James must be teaching something freakishly phenomenal, and he would definitely have a solution for my situation. I told James about my dreadful situation and spat out all the disturbing and creepy details. After hearing me, James threw his head back in thought and said, "Send your ex this text." And without revealing too many details, he explained that this text trick is called the Intrigue Activator and will make my ex thirsty and hungry to meet me. The text appeared too simple and even stupid if I were to be honest, but I set the text anyway and waited. No reply. I waited a few more hours and still no reply. Okay, this is dumb, and this text was never going to work, I thought, but that's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my ex, and it read, "Can we please meet to talk about this?" I couldn't believe my eyes. It freaking worked. I fought my urge to respond right away and immediately contacted James. James told me to meet my ex and shared one specific line that I must say at the beginning and at the very end during my meeting. He said that a variation of this line is used by hypnosis experts to put people into a trance, and this triggers a man's biological attraction circuit, which makes him burn and itch with attraction. Once again, the line sounded stupid and not something that could ever work. But with fear and hope pulsating in my chest, I invited my ex to my house later that evening. My ex arrived, and I somehow managed to show no emotion and said that specific line within 5 minutes. However, when I said it the second time, my ex quickly got up and said, "I've got to go," and hurried out of the door. A horrendous mixture of bitterness and regret circled my body, but shockingly, within 20 seconds, I heard a knock on the door. It was my ex once again, but he was on his knees, crying irritatingly hard, and kept saying, "Please forgive me. I was so stupid. Please take me back." My belly flipped with joy, and my lungs expanded in satisfaction. But with a big ego-driven expression, I replied, "I'll think about it," and slammed the door hard in his face. I shamelessly admit that I felt an evil sense of satisfaction from his reaction, but there was absolutely no way I was going to take him back. But now a new question bounced in my head. Why did this trick work so well and so fast? I contacted James, and he explained that this trick creatively exploits the emotion processing part of the male brain known as the amygdala. The human mind is divided into two parts, the rational mind called the neocortex and the emotional mind called the amygdala. Usually the rational mind controls 90% of our decisions. However, when the amygdala is triggered, it overpowers the rational mind, makes logical reasoning sluggish, and emotional impulses take over. Ever seen dangerously overweight people who aggressively gobble down junk food, even when their health condition could kill them? Why does a sane person ignore logic and overeat? That's because the amygdala comes up with lightning-fast responses to triggers, and a person feels their body shiver and moan with impulses to act. The rational mind usually takes longer to process information and can't win when the amygdala has taken over. So when I said those words to my ex, it went through his ears, into his amygdala, and it sent chemical messages to his body, which raised his heartbeat. His palms got sweaty, and a very strong desire to have me back stirred up in his head. James then explained that any woman from 18 to even 80 years old can use this and make a guy do almost anything, even some evil, irrational, and weird things. Hearing this, my mouth slobbered with greed, and I wanted to know more. James said that it all started 11 years ago when he vowed to become the best relationship coach ever and researched universal commonalities and triggers in the male brain which provoke and activate the amygdala. He discovered the scientific psychology on how the male brain processed information and discovered a massive trick that exploits any man's sense of sight, smell, touch, and sound to literally put him under a love spell. He learned special cognitive words from underground hypnosis experts that are known to squeeze into any man's brain, stir up emotions, and make him do exactly what you need. He interviewed thousands of men and asked them 100 finely tuned questions designed to strip the male brain naked and expose the triggers that provoke and stimulate a man to feel a hormonal rage of love. Plus, he even used reverse psychology to make these men blurt out the single mysterious factor that naturally provokes, awakens, and arouses a man to enthusiastically pursue a woman. He studied alpha women who are masters at male seduction and paid very cautious attention to the words they used, how they said it, and vigorously studied the body language they maintained to make any man thirsty and begging for attention. He even got his hands on some ancient psychology books and learned the fine art of transferring invisible commands to a man's brain that fills his cell up with a strong need, craving, and addiction for the woman who uses it on him. Just as he was telling me all this, I noticed a collection of papers in his hand. I apologetically interrupted and asked him about these papers. He casually replied, "Oh, these are my notes and a collection of all my tricks and formulas from 11 years of research." My heart literally flared up with excitement as I thought, I've got to have this. "Can I please have these notes?" I asked him desperately. He looked very uncertain for a moment, but then said, "Sure, but you have to promise that you won't use it for anything evil." I nodded my head in agreement, and he printed a new copy for me. I jumped and screamed with joy and quickly rushed home to read these notes like a geeky student hungry for information. I was flabbergasted at how easy the tricks were and immediately wanted to test it on a guy. There was a guy at my office who I found deliciously appealing. I once asked him out in the past, before I was with my ex, but he very directly and disturbingly rejected me. Later, I caught him telling a colleague that I was 2 out of a 10 and that I was horrid and unpleasant to look at. As this horrifying incident replayed in my head, I dug through the notes and found the mental link-up technique that is known to alter a man's state of mind and generates the "I like this girl" feeling in his gut. I used this trick during a small 5-minute interaction with him, and just as I was about to head home, He asked me out to dinner and blushed and giggled when I said yes. This alarmed and baffled a colleague of mine who was standing at the corner witnessing all this. With her eyebrows raised in shock, she asked me to explain how I did that. I remained silent at first, but then she confessed that her husband barely notices her and always wants to spend time away from her. Seeing her misery, I shared the bonding elevation technique from the notes. She used it on her husband, and when she returned home that evening, her husband physically charged towards her, screamed that his body was aching to touch her all day, and gave her the most passionate kiss ever. After seeing this result, this colleague brought along another friend who dated a guy for almost 6 years, but this man used to get restless, cranky, and irritable whenever she asked him for marriage. I shared something called the rapid emotional shift formula with her that is known to melt away a man's commitment phobia like butter melts on a hot stove. She used it, and on the 4th day, this same man appeared at her work, pulled her roughly towards him, and gently whispered, "Will you be my wife?" in her ear, as her office colleagues watched in absolute shock and amazement. I'm not going to lie, I got a delicious kick out of helping these women, but then word got out about the secret notes, and every woman was begging me to share it. This terrified the life out of me, as I never asked James for his permission. So left with no other option, I approached James and told him everything, expecting him to shout and scream at me. But with a cheerful expression on his face, he said, "That's amazing. I've always wanted to help more women." However, then his face turned rigid and tense as he said, "But there is a problem." "What problem?" I asked. "Well, these notes are a little choppy, and I can't give this away in the current condition," he said. He told me to contact him after 90 days, and during that time he worked like a scientist obsessed with perfection to put together a ridiculously simple, done-for-you program called the Guy Magnet System that gives you the power to freeze any man's mind with love and make his pulses leap with attraction for you and only you. But before I go any further, I need to be respectfully rude to you. What you're about to learn will give you the power to trigger an aching, burning, and almost animalistic craving within any man you point your finger at. But you'll also get the terrifying power to intentionally or unintentionally hurt, humiliate, or damage innocent little hearts. Therefore, if your plan is to use this information for evil or harmful purposes, then I respectfully ask you to leave this page right now. Okay, now that we've made that awkward warning, let me give you a bird's eye view into what you'll be learning in this program. Your tummy will bang, bump, and beat with euphoria when you discover the impulse injection technique. Use this to rapidly transfer thoughts and feelings from your mind directly into any man's mind and watch his heartbeat rise, his palms sweat, and his body lusting in pure love for you. Warning, this technique is so fierce and penetrating that a man will feel ripples of excitement just hearing your voice alone. Is he keeping his options open and has plenty of women to choose from? Discover the fanatic addiction technique that installs your image so deeply into his brain cells that he feels outraged and repulsed by other women and becomes severely preoccupied with you and only you. Within 24 hours of applying this, his body will itch to hold you, and he'll tell you how much he applauds, adores, and admires to have someone like you in his life. Does he chew his nails in terror when you talk about commitment? Your face will stretch into a spontaneous smirk when you discover the rapid emotional shift technique. This secretly invades his mind and aggressively bangs, splashes, and blows up his commitment phobia so furiously that his body goes erratic and he obsesses over how, when, and where he's going to propose to you. Is there a specific man you desperately like? Discover the "we belong together" technique that ethically tricks his mind into thinking that you two are absolutely meant to be together, makes him graphically visualize a future with you, and shoots his nerves with a strange compulsion that forces him to convince, persuade, and beg you to like him. How to use penetrative words that invisibly instruct his brain to overlook and turn blind to your flaws and see you as a super delicious, delightful, and dazzling woman, both physically and emotionally. In fact, your man will turn into a compliment-giving machine and will tell you how beautiful, gorgeous, and stunning you are all day until your face heats up and burns red blushing. Has he grown distant, aloof, and uninterested? Now you can stir his emotions and juice them up using the hook and entice technique. This short-circuits his brain to rekindle old forgotten feelings, charges him up to affectionately tease you, lovingly hold you, and confess his love to you in such an explicit, passionate, and poetic way that your eyes will tear up with joy. Discover a 5-minute conversation trick that excites and stimulates any man into thinking that you're the most pleasing, interesting, and impressive woman he's ever laid eyes on. Hence, this involves talking about 3 very bizarre, outrageous, and laughable things. Do you know that one dumb and senseless desire that every man frantically needs, craves, and longs for, yet most women are blind and oblivious to it? Hence, no, it's not sex. And knowing just this one thing alone will make your man treat you like a precious treasure that he must safeguard, care for, and protect for the rest of his life. Want him to obey, satisfy, and fulfill your every request. Introducing the invisible command technique. I'll give you one simple but ingenious sentence you can attach before any request, and watch how swiftly your request travels into his mind and changes into tiny little sparks of motivation and impulses, which alert his body to fulfill your request like his life depends on it. Are you disturbed, torn, and devastated after your breakup and need him back? The breakup U-turn technique will peel the wool off your ex's eyes, delete all unwanted history from his memory, and infect him with a brand new craving and urgent eagerness to get back with you. Don't be surprised if your ex shows up at your doorstep with tearful eyes, begging for forgiveness and desperate for another chance. Stuck with a stubborn man who fights, argues, and bickers with aggression? Use the argument diminisher technique to cause a rapid shift in his mind, where he starts to believe that disagreeing with you is a shameful and immoral sin that will never be forgiven. Within 2 minutes of applying this, he'll get down on his knees, look deep into your eyes to tell you how sorry he is, and will beg you to tell him how he can make it up to you. Did you meet a guy who seems a little too hard to get? Learn how to push, launch, and trigger the wheel of obsession in his mind. This paints his senses with intense temptation and chokes him with a sudden spurt of anxious feelings to chase you, get close to you, and make you his forever with a burning level of possessiveness. Warning, use it with caution, because once a man is stuck in this wheel of obsession, he won't be able to snap out of it, even if he wants to. Has he started staring at other women and doesn't find you sexy or appealing anymore? Discover the spontaneous desire technique that leaves him drunk, boozed up, and high with attraction. Use this on him, and on the first day, his eyes will shine and soften up with lust for you. On the second day, he'll feel impulses to comfort, please, and pleasure you. And by the third day, he'll stare at you with such seductive intensity that it will seem like he would eat you alive. And not just this, I've shamelessly stripped the male brain completely naked to expose some raunchy, wicked, and evil secrets, and I'll reveal how to milk and exploit these secrets to make any man feel that you're the only woman in the whole wide world who actually gets him. This naturally inspires him to share his most intimate thoughts, feelings, and secrets with you, and makes his emotions flow like honey flows out of a jar. I could go on, but this isn't even half of what's covered in the Guy Magnet program. I can almost feel the eagerness, thirst, and hunger burning in your hearts. I know you want this, and more importantly, need this. So let me ask you something. What is it really worth to see any man erupt like an earthquake with love for you? What is it worth to see that one special man take you into his arms, look deep into your eyes, and tell you how much he loves, adores, and cherishes you? What is it worth to see a man unable to think about any other woman but you? Look, I don't want to upset you, but I need to be honest with you. Women like you and me have been led to believe sleazy, rotten, and outrageous lies on what men find attractive. I mean, just glance over a few popular magazines and look at how they put pictures of these fake-looking models trying to deceive and pressure us into feeling insecure, anxious, and unworthy. If you're anything like me, then you've already abused and molested your bank account and burnt hundreds upon thousands of dollars on things like makeup, clothes, shoes, gym memberships, diet pills, and a million other things we use to decorate ourselves with the false hope that it'll make us pleasing to men. Now, while keeping that in careful consideration, what do you think would be a fair price for the Guy Magnet system? James usually charges a personal consultation fee of $500 per hour, and if you were to take 2 sessions per week for a month, it will add up to $4,000. But knowing that most women can't afford that, James and I had a very intense discussion, and I happily suggested that $297 would be a more than fair price for his system. But then James said that his goal is to reach as many women as possible with this information, and he doesn't want women feeling stressed, pressured, and needing to stretch their budget to conjure up the money. So he fought, negotiated, and forced our very stubborn publisher to offer a never-seen-before discount on the Guy Magnet system, but only for a very short period of time. So for this one time only, you aren't going to pay $297. You aren't even going to pay $197. Heck, you don't even have to pay $97. By ordering today, only through this presentation, you get the entire system at a ridiculously low one-time only payment of $47. Look, I've got to be honest with you. The price of the system could go back to $297 in a few hours, a few minutes, or maybe even a few seconds from now. No, I'm not saying that to scare you, but it's my duty to caution you because our publisher controls the price of this program currently and not us. They're planning on raising the price soon, and it's not something we can control even if we wanted to. Heck, it's possible that you might mistakenly refresh this page and find that this program is no longer being sold for $47, and you're left with no other option but to pay $297. And to prove that James is ridiculously confident and knows without any doubt that this program will transform you into an attractive machine who excites, energizes, and intoxicates any man that he is willing to take all the risk. Here's how it works. Download the Guy Magnet program right now and glance through some of the easy-to-follow tips, tricks, and techniques. Feel and experience changes take place right before your eyes as you see men going dizzy, breathless, and erratic in attraction for you. If over the next 60 days, you don't get back at least 10 times the value of your investment, although I know that is never going to happen, or you don't like the program for any reason, I want you to send me an email, and I'll happily and graciously offer you a full, no questions asked refund with a thank you note for at least giving this a try. And to put a cherry on top of an already delicious cake, James wants to make this decision so painless and embarrassingly easy for you that he's going to generously give you 3 super bonuses once you invest in the Guy Magnet system right now. First, you'll get the Love Trigger Report, which is worth $37 in value. Here, you'll learn how to create a sensory, unconscious connection in his brain, which wires your image directly to the emotion of intense love, pleasure, and excitement. So exactly like a 5-year-old dribbles, slobbers, and drools over a scoop of ice cream, a man will salivate and emotionally buzz whenever he thinks about you. He will itch, yearn, and hanker to hold you tight whenever you're around, and will blow your phone up with lovey-dovey texts whenever you're away. Next, you'll get the Man Training Manual, worth $37 in value once again. James consulted animal trainers and learned nonverbal body language tricks used to keep these animals under control. He then developed his own shocking connections on how this information can be exploited and hacked to be used on any man to keep him loyal, devoted, and in a constant mode of attraction for you all day long. In fact, your man will feel an exaggerated level of satisfaction by making you happy, and pleasuring you will turn into his favorite pastime. And finally, you'll get the Male Mind Explorer Report, worth $37 as well. Discover how to mentally link your brain to his brain. Now you'll be able to decipher, decode, and precisely know exactly what he needs from you, exactly what he's thinking or feeling at any given moment, and exactly what action he's going to take next, even when he doesn't utter a single word. This is a new twist on an old psychological process called invisible communication, which makes his brain completely see-through and transparent. You will vividly see what's cooking in his mind with pinpoint accuracy, the dirty secrets he's been hiding from you, the nasty lies he's been keeping from you, what he really thinks about you, and a lot more. Good enough? Okay, so now let's do some simple math. You're getting the main Guy Magnet system worth $297, plus the Love Trigger Report, the Man Training Manual, and the Male Mind Explorer Report, worth $37 each, which comes to a combined total of $111 for 3 bonus reports. If you add up the main program and the bonuses, you're getting almost $400 worth of products for a one-time only investment of $47. If you think about it, I'm letting you ethically rip James off, because that's an almost 90% discount, and it won't be logical or rational to let a delicious offer like this slip away. Okay, now I need you to become completely alert, because I'll explain how you can get this program and start using it just 5 minutes from now. Below this video, you will see a huge Add to Cart button. Once you click on it, you'll be taken to an order review page where you can see a summary, details, and complete breakdown of what you're going to get. After that page, you'll be taken to a checkout page where you can enter your payment details using a credit card, debit card, or PayPal. Once you do this, you will be instantly taken to a download page where you will be given immediate access to the complete Guy Magnet program along with the bonuses. Good enough? All right, now you've seen, heard, and digested it all. So at this point, you're left with only two choices. The first choice is that you leave this page empty-handed, completely erase and scratch out what you heard or saw in this presentation, and go back to living your life with that same old feeling of restless discomfort and irrational worry whenever you think about men or your love life. Or you could make the smart, wise, and completely painless second choice by following the Add to Cart button below and downloading the Guy Magnet system. And once that's done, you can sit back and experience feelings of relief, joy, and comfort all day, every day, by knowing that you are in full, total, and complete control of your relationships. Don't think of this as an investment. Rather, think of it as a gift to yourself. Think of it as a shortcut to a better life, a shortcut to more happiness, a shortcut to more fulfillment, prosperity, and peace of mind. Because if you think about it, what can ever replace that delicious emotion of feeling needed, wanted, and adored by the man of your dreams? What can replace seeing his eyes light up with joy when he watches you smile? What can replace that feeling of protection you experience when he wraps his arms around you in a warm embrace every night? What can ever replace that gratifying feeling when your man lovingly tells you that you're the only woman for him and he wishes, wants, and needs to spend the rest of his life with you? No amount of money can ever replace that feeling. So I hope you make the smart choice today by clicking the Add to Cart button below and giving yourself a gift that you'll cherish for the rest of your life. I know I've said it a lot, but let me just say one final thing. In whatever little time we've had together, I've shown you three very important things. The first thing, you understand that it is possible to provoke, awaken, and arouse any man to enthusiastically pursue you, love you, and desire to be with you, regardless of your age, looks, IQ, or anything else. The second thing, you also understand that there are specific tricks and techniques you can learn and use today to alter a man's state of mind and inspire him to love you and only you forever. And finally, the third thing, you also understand and agree that in order to get what you desperately want from your man, you must know these specific tricks. So now, since you agree with all these points, don't you think it's a good idea to at least try out this program? I mean, what do you have to lose anyway? With the risk-free guarantee, you get 60 full days to test drive this program. Therefore, you have absolutely nothing to lose. Once again, I'd say do not delay this decision even one more second, because as you know, the price has already been cut down from $297 to $47, just so you could jump in right now. Honestly, our publisher could raise the price back to $297 anytime without notice. So if I was in your shoes, I'd act right now before your special discounted link for $47 disappears forever, and you're forced to pay $297. I don't want an awful thing like that to happen to you, and I'm sure that you don't want it to happen to you either. Therefore, one final time, click on the Add to Cart button below, download the program right now, and I'll see you on the inside.